what happened to the presumption of innocent until proved guilty? And that seems to be melting. That very important principle seems to be melting in our public life. So I'm not necessarily sure that I have that faith in the judiciary anymore. Stig, I wish I did, but I'm not quite so trusting as you are.
Plans to fast-track appeals of hundreds of sub-postmasters affected by the Post Office IT scandal are coming imminently, with Cabinet Mel Stride coming on our programme to say the government is prepared to pick up the pace.
We've paid out £138 million to 2,700 people, but there is clearly quite a lot more to do, and we are absolutely determined the government gets this and to move at pace.
Let's speak now to Kezia and Quentin. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Kezia, I mean, this is a story that's been long in the making. It's been given an awful lot of legs over the last week or so because of that ITV drama. What's the central lesson that you've taken from all of this, and how fixable quickly is it, in your view?
So I'm watching the show at the minute. I'm 3 episodes into the 4-part series, and I'm not sure any of us really know how it ends quite yet. That depends on how the government react in the coming days. I did know about the story beforehand. Of course I did. I've read about it, but I always kind of bottled it down to a story about computer error. I knew it was something to do with this Horizon software, and it had caused all these problems for all of these people running post offices. But actually watching the drama over the past few days, this is really a fundamental story about human flaws rather than computer errors. It's about senior people with power repeatedly ignoring complaints, concerns, the voices of the little guy, the people who were running these post offices, and repeatedly going to people with power and saying there is a problem here, and those people being ignored. And that's been happening not for 5 or 10 years, but for 15 years. A lot of these complaints were raised in 2009. So it really sticks in the craw a bit to hear government ministers today say we're going to take quick action as fast as possible. That they're only doing that because they've essentially been found out that the length of time this has taken is now surprised over 1 million people who are signing petitions left, right and centre. So the urgency is real, and I suspect we will see some progress this week, but that is long, long overdue.
Yeah. Quentin, this is a question of fairness. You know, we're all cynical people, but we probably like to believe that at the heart of things like the judicial system, there's a basic sense of fairness and right and wrong and innocence until you're proven guilty. And that just doesn't seem to have been the case here.
I'm touched by your naivety.
Yeah.
Do we really think that about the judiciary anymore? But this is a story about, it is a story about computers being revered. That's part of it. It's also a story about corporate and establishment inertia. Over years, people in authority refusing to listen to the so-called little people. It's a story about, it's a story that illustrates the elusiveness of public attention, because, you know, this story has been around for a very long time, and it's been difficult to grab public attention. And it's a story about obsession with modernization as well. And I remember, gosh, it must have been about the year 2000, I suppose, when it was Ian McCartney, was a post office minister, who was saying how wonderful the system was going to be because it was new, and anything new was worship. You know, that I think we have learned to our cost that is not always the case. And also, what happened to the presumption of innocent until proved guilty? And that seems to be melting. That very important principle seems to be melting in our public life. So I'm not necessarily sure that I have that faith in the judiciary anymore. Stig, I wish I did, but I'm not quite so trusting as you are.
And what should change? I mean, there's a couple of things here. I'm interested in your thoughts on that. There's this kind of procedural questions, and then there's personality-based things. What should happen to the bosses who allowed this to happen? What should happen to Fujitsu, the company that still trousers 100 million quid a year, more or less, from the government? Should private prosecutions by companies be allowed? What do you reckon, Quentin? We'll come to Kezia in a second on this. What things would you like to see? Should Paula Venables have her CBE removed? Why is Adam Crozier, who was very successful at ITV and Royal Mail, why is he not very much mentioned in all of this? I suppose the micro and the macro, Quentin, what would you like to see happen?
It doesn't really get my juices going, taking baubles off people. It doesn't. I mean, some people get very vexed about that. I never really put much store by those baubles in the first place,
Yeah.
and certainly by the way that they're awarded. So, to me, that's a secondary issue. I would very much like to see Fujitsu put on the rack for a bit, because they seem to have got off pretty lightly in all this. But to me, the more important thing here is going back to the idea of official inertia and of the system really resisting being questioned. And that, I think, is where it would be useful to see some change. I live in hope of that change, but I think I will never live to see it happen, because I just don't think that human nature, once people get in authority, they don't necessarily listen to the small bit. And look at the way Sir Edward Davey has got he's up to his oxters in this, poor chap, and because he had always styled himself the great defender of individual rights, and then when he got into authority as the cabinet minister responsible, he refused to meet Mr. Bates.
Yeah, he did indeed. Kezia, personal or procedural? What change would you like to see? What would you like to see the focus go to?
All of it. And I agree with Quentin on much of what he said there. I do think Ed Davey's in terrible trouble here, because it's the charge of hypocrisy that gets you in the end. And he's, spoken out on so many other examples that he deserves a decent amount of scrutiny in this regard. I would start with what the campaigners want. What does Alan Bates think represents justice in this situation? Yes, there's a big question about the compensation that's due to the paymasters and the urgency of which that must be met. But they need more they can't just give them back their livelihoods. This has been decades of their lives that have been taken away. I'm not sure there is a financial sum that can address that. So what is it that they actually want? Well, I think I've heard through the drama that they want an end to this idea that the post office itself can prosecute people. That's a no-brainer. How many other organisations have that power? Do we need to have a look across the whole system in the country to see if there are any other potential examples in the future? And as Kate said earlier, there is also a big issue here about the role of technology in our lives, which is only going to increase in the coming years. So to what degree is there accountability and scrutiny over systems like Horizon, or the role of AI in the future? Where's the check and balance? Where's the ability for us to challenge what these systems say or do with regards to our own lives? I'm not sure we fully understood that yet.
Do you think Ed Davey, the Times had a very pointed piece yesterday saying he's called for 31 people to step aside in the last 5 years. Some people have got in touch saying to us, you know what, stop picking on Ed Davey. He's too easy to pick on. Everyone is up to their, what's the word you use, Quentin? Up to their what?
Priggish.
Oxters.
He's a terrible prig.
He's a prig. I know he's a bit up to his oxters. They're all up to their oxters. Yeah, they're all up to their oxters in it. It's wrong to pick on Ed Davey. Kez, do you think he should step aside? Do you think actually he shouldn't try and lead the Lib Dems into an election?
I don't know if I would go that far yet, but I think he deserves a fair amount of fire on his feet just now to explain why he didn't take these meetings, why he was so dismissive. And it is, for me, that charge of hypocrisy. Is very quick to do this with other people. The case, I know there aren't direct parallels here, but I think a lot about, Tom Watson and what happened with Tom Watson around the particular cases around false accusations of sexual abuse, misconduct that he got himself involved in, and that eventually destroyed his career because of the role he played in that. I think there are parallels for Ed Davey here. I don't think he's been quick to say sorry. I don't think he's shown much contrition. He's tried to shake it off. I think there's a bit more heat coming his way yet.
Still end up in the House of Lords, Kezia.
That'll fix it.
Yeah, they always do.
I just had to Google oxters. Armpits.
It's a good Scottish word.
Yes,
I'm surprised Quentin knows it.
Well, I just discovered that. I did not know that. I thought it was an item of clothing, Quentin, because you are so impeccably dressed. I thought it was some kind of brace outfit that I hadn't come across before.